All right, let's kick it off. So, welcome to this webinar. My name is Melis. I'm the brand and product marketing specialist at Channels. Here we are here today at the webinar creating better tenant experiences in travel hubs. So, some house rules before we get started. Please use the chat function for any questions you may have throughout the webinar. And keep yourselves muted at all times. If you have any question that you want to unmute yourself and ask verbally, just raise your hand, and then I'll be able to unmute you and just welcome you to the stage. So let's get started. So in the first part of the webinar, we will start with a little introduction from our speakers. And then we will dive into some key trends around tenant experience in travel hubs. Then we will touch on digitization and operational efficiency in airports and railways. And then there will be an open discussion, which you are very welcome to join in by commenting or raising your hand and just joining in the conversation. And then we will sum up the key learnings and dive into your questions as the audience. So before we kick it off, I would like to start with asking the panel to introduce themselves with a little icebreaker. So Joe, can you tell us who you are, where you come from, and also if you have any travel plans already for the summer?
Yeah, thank you, Melis. Well, as you know by now, my name is Joe Jarvis. I'm a content marketer here at Channels. I've worked at the company for nearly 2 years now, and during that time I've written pretty extensively about tenant experience across all asset classes, including travel hubs, and really excited to dive a bit deeper into this topic today with you all. I'm from Essex in the UK, if you couldn't tell by my accent, but I now live in Rotterdam. And my travel plans for this summer, I will be going to France, the south of France, and I'll be traveling there by train from Paris. So
wow, these are super nice plans, Joe.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing. So before I ask the same question to Stefan, the audience, you are more than welcome to introduce yourself in the chat. Tell us where you come from, where you're joining from, and if you have any travel plans this summer. So Stefan, can I ask you to introduce yourself?
Sure, of course. Thanks, Melis. My name is Stefan Kotzuba. I'm from Vienna Airport, and I'm working here in the real estate department, and I'm the head of the marketing and digitization department. And yes, so I'm responsible for doing community management and stuff like this. And my travel plans for this summer, good question. There's nothing fixed yet, because due to my girlfriend, I'm able to fly standby with her. So probably Greece, but let's see what turns out in the summer.
That's fantastic. Greece is always a good plan. All right, so let's dive straight into it. So we will start with a little introduction of Channels, and then we will go into Vienna AirportCity, and then we will get right into the topic. So Joe, I leave the floor to you to introduce Channels.
Yeah, thank you, Melis. So if you didn't know by now, Channels, well, we like to call ourselves a tenant experience platform. And we've been around for about 10 years now. We're based in Rotterdam. We serve a range of asset classes from retail to residential to mixed use. And more recently, we've focused a bit more on the travel hubs vertical. So what does our app do? Well, we help with a range of tasks involved with kind of property and asset management within real estate properties. So that could be communication through direct chat or group messages, announcements on a news feed, event management, and so on. But we also help with the operational side of things. So problem solving when it comes to maintenance and repairs. Also offering amenities and services through our booking modules and allowing tenants to pay for those particular services. We also enable things like staff discounts and request forms, which basically just makes it easier for tenants to get involved in the community and also kind of get their jobs done as well as possible. We also help with data collection, so turnover reporting, footfall, energy reporting, and so on. So we have a range of native features, but we also integrate with lots of other different solutions out there, so you can kind of create the kind of solution that works best for your properties.
All right. I think there is a slight delay in the presentation, but let's move on.
Yeah, so as I just said, we recently moved into the Travel Hubs vertical, and one client who is a good kind of showcase of our capabilities within Travel Hubs is NS Station. So that's the Dutch railway body. They use our app in 4 major stations within the Netherlands. So Amsterdam, our hometown of Rotterdam, Utrecht, and The Hague all use channels to manage retail communities of around 182 tenant companies. And these are all major travel hubs. They get around 100,000 visitors daily, and even Amsterdam, which is a major global tourist destination, it can receive up to 10 million visitors per year. So hugely complex in its operations, and Chainlaws helps them simplify a lot of those operations.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And then maybe Stefan, you can tell us a bit about Vienna Airport.
Sure, thanks, Joe. So the first question maybe is, what is Vienna Airport City? Most of the people thinking about an airport think about the planes, the terminals, and all that kind of stuff. But there's a lot more things going around at Vienna, for example. So Vienna Airport City is one of the biggest business campuses in the country. We have more than 250 tenants here on site, which have different office spaces, cargo spaces, stuff like this, and more than 23,000 people who are working here, or employees who are working here for our tenants. Some of them, of course, for Vienna Airport directly, but most of them for airlines, cargo companies, and stuff like this. And that's the reason. You can find some other hard facts. We have more than 120,000 square meters of office space and 44,000 square meters of warehouse space. And our wide range of services here at the airport contains, for example, multiple hotels, restaurants, supermarkets, and shops. We have a business postal service, inclusive a self-service foyer. And we have dry cleaning services, a medical center, fitness studio, pharmacy, a kindergarten, IT solutions and security services for our tenants, and even a vehicle registration office. So we're doing quite a lot to improve the tenant experience here on site and to offer additional services you can find in a regular city, because many times the airport is not within the city and not everything is directly connected. And so we try to build all these kind of services also on site to increase the satisfaction of our tenants and the people working and even traveling here, of course. So the airport city also contains the traveler, to be honest. So it's quite flexible to have all kind of target groups within the airport city, yes.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Thanks for that. Thanks for that, Stefan. Very good summary of the Vienna Airport City. It's definitely a very exciting community to discover. So before we jump into the next step of our webinar, I would like to ask the audience to just comment if you have any questions, if you have anything that you're curious about the Vienna Airport City. Yeah, the comment section is yours to utilize. So let's jump into the next section and discover what tenant experience actually is in travel hubs. So Stefan, how would you describe or define tenant experience in airports or in travel hubs in general, and what are the main pillars of it according to you? You need to unmute yourself.
Thank you. I think the tenant experience contains a lot of different factors. Of course, the main demands are accessibility, so that people can come to the site, to the hub easily. you need the flexibility to fulfill all their office and cargo demands so that you can offer the right amount of space for them, as flexible as possible. They also ask for sustainable initiatives on site so that you can show some green footprint as well when renting offices. And of course, happy employees mean happy tenants. This is also a very important point. And in this case, also food options are an issue, or other services like supermarkets, the postal office, where you can do daily services and increase the experience of the employees as well.
Mm-hmm. 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 What about you, Joe? What are your thoughts about defining tenant experience in travel hubs?
Yeah, well, I think Stefan explained it really well. I would say that there are definitely three main aspects of tenant experience in travel hubs, which kind of feed into each other. So first of all, obviously you have communication. So how well are you communicating with your tenants, and how well can they communicate with you and with each other? That has a big effect on experience, because if people can't communicate, they can't collaborate, they can't solve problems. And talking about solving problems, that also takes you into the next pillar of, well, what I like to call operationality. So how well can you solve your tenants' problems? How quickly can you respond to their needs? And also, in order to do that, you need to understand their needs. So that feeds into the third pillar, which is about data. So it's about collecting both quantitative data and qualitative data, whether that's kind of turnover information about the amount of money they've made over a particular period of time, but also qualitative data in the form of tenant surveys, asking tenants what their experience is of your travel hub. How do they enjoy it? What would they like to see more of? How would they improve it? So I'd say tenant experience kind of brings together these three aspects, and it's all about basically giving your tenants the means to thrive and to do what they do as well as possible.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Great answer, Joe. Thanks for that. Stefan, back to you. I have just one more question. What are the tenant demands and needs at Vienna Airport City, and how do you address them? Do they change based on seasonality, market trends, or other factors? What would you think about this?
I think in general the seasonality is not such a big thing, but market trends, of course. So we have a lot of requests for more flexible office situations. So we introduced a new conference and innovation center lately 2 years ago, which also offers very flexible meeting rooms you can book for 1 hour starting from, as well as co-working spaces. So yeah, the tenants need flexibility, as mentioned before, and as Joe said, also the communication. They want and all informations that are possible, easy access to them. So you need an information point where they can access quickly and easily and get all information they need to be successful at the site, to be successful at the airport. And yeah, you can be sure that there's a lot of possible informations at an airport. You've seen the list of services we offer, and it's pretty difficult that all employees know, all tenants know the wide range and know how these things are working, who are the right person to contact. And yeah, so information is also a big thing to keep them happy.
Definitely. Stefan, before I move to the same question to Joe, you have a question from the audience from Henrik Roth. Which of the facilities at Vienna Airport City, postal services, gym, medical center, nursery, you just mentioned, are gaining momentum the fastest? And how do you monitor their impact?
Gaining momentum fast is difficult to answer because most of them are there for quite a few years. But the postal office is a very good example. We had the issue, formerly there was an own postal office from the National Postal Services, and they closed back some years ago. And all the tenants said, okay, we need some kind of stuff to send our postal things and packages out. And there is now the solution is business partner postal office, which is operated by the airport itself, but it's a business partner of the postal office in Austria. And so we could offer again the service to all the tenants. So we're also always doing research which services are needed. And yeah, I think the fitness center is also pretty good use. So for many years, there are a lot of people are going there. Of course, the conference centers are used quite good. The hotels, we will also build a third hotel in this year, it should open in the next year. So we nearly double our beds from around 600 to 1,000 or stuff like that. So yeah, all that kind of services are easily good or are good requested at the moment.
Thanks for that. Henrik, let us know if this answered your question. If not, you can, of course, ask more to Stefan, and we will try to bring the question to him. So, Joe, the same question to you. You have experience writing and researching about tenant experience in general, in different asset types as well, but more specifically in travel hubs. What are the tenant demands and needs? What do you observe, based on your work?
Well, I think when we talk about demands and needs of travel hubs in particular, it's important to understand that travel hubs are hugely complex properties. And the amount of problems and demands and needs that a tenant can face is very multifaceted. So I think the most important thing is to have a consistent platform by which they kind of communicate their problems, and they can communicate with each other instead of having lots of disparate ones, which can get a little bit confusing. So being a bit more consolidated in kind of your communication and your operations is always a good way to meet their demands and needs.
Mm-hmm.
It's also important to point out that travel hubs are incredibly high volume areas. So if something goes wrong, the problem will need fixing very quickly in order for them to continue operating. So it's very important to have a means to which you can report issues and track them in a very efficient and fast way.
Mm-hmm.
It also helps to have speed and simplicity when interacting with their landlord. And also retaining staff is always a difficult, it's always a bit of a challenge for any business. But this is why it's so important to kind of have tools for kind of building community. So organizing events, having discounts, so they can really see the benefit of being part of a travel hub, and they become more invested in the community as opposed to just seeing it as a place where they go to work.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Thanks for that, Joe. While we are at that, we did a little research at Channels about how travel hubs evolved from the past to now. So Joe, can I ask you to just walk us through what we have found out in this research?
Yeah, so I think if we go all the way back to the 1970s, long before I was born, but back then, way back, travel hubs were kind of single-use locations. They were strictly places where you went to catch a train or catch a plane. They didn't really go beyond that. They were functional assets. So what changed? Well, I think if we look at the growth in population over the years, the growth of cities, also the affordability and access to travel that we have nowadays, this has meant that travel hubs have become more than just travel hubs. They're also centers of commerce, and they're places, with shops and services, which bring in revenue, obviously, but also help to control large crowds of people, which you get at transport hubs. It's better to have people visiting shops and using services within a space rather than just all standing around wondering what to do with themselves while they wait for their train or their plane. So shops and services, they bring in revenue, but they also help crowd control, which is an added benefit. More recently, with the kind of advent of digitization and the convenience economy and so on, travel hubs have really grown into these kind of high-level service-based models where they become way more than the sum of their parts, way more than. I think if you look back at the 70s, you would never have thought that travel hubs could become what they are today. To give an example, Hauptbahnhof train station in Berlin it's a train station, but it's also a massive retail complex with conference centers and offices and so on. And also, these are the kind of places that you want to stick around in. For example, me, like when I go home to London, I always go into King's Cross because I get the Eurostar from Rotterdam. And King's Cross St Pancras is really the kind of place where when I'm there, I kind of want to hang around there. I like it, which is way more than I can say about most train stations in the UK. So that really says something about the value of this kind of introducing these high-level service-based models into travel hubs.
Stefan, do you have anything to add to this, or do you agree with Joe with his points?
Yeah, I think I can agree to nearly all he said. As an airport, we also have the experience that passengers do not only travel through an airport, but they also see that airport as the start of the journey. So they want to have a good experience at the airport. And this starts from an easy check-in process regarding an easy security check. And after this, of course, a nice shopping experience, good shops, good food. And so you have to improve all these kind of things to make the passengers happy and to give you a good rating overall as a travel hub. So this definitely has changed in the last years a lot.
Definitely. To follow up on this, Joe, can you also say with all the transition that is happening in the travel hubs, what property and asset managers, community managers need to do to welcome the change, and what are the challenges that they're facing internally and externally?
Yeah, well, I think as travel hubs become more complex and they take on more and more functions, the more and more challenges that property and asset managers face. One being the kind of demand for convenience that we see from consumers. I think we see this across all industries. I think if you look at apps like Uber and Amazon, they've really kind of raised the bar when it comes to convenience, and it means that consumers really expect convenience. And that's the same for travel hubs. When people are utilizing your travel hub, they expect convenience. They expect to have what they need when they need it at hand, just like they have everywhere else. And that's a big challenge for property and asset managers because they have to make sure that they have the means to meet those demands. Another one is neighborhoodization, which kind of feeds into the concept of convenience. Is that like travel hubs can be more than just a place where you go to catch a plane or a train. I mean, in Vienna Airport's case, it's a place where people work and it's a place where people socialize. So having this kind of neighborhoodization aspect really creates a community which tenants are invested in, which helps with retention. But it's also a challenge because you need to supply the amenities and services which create that sense of neighborhoodization. Bit of a mouthful, but and obviously the last one, I think we can all relate to the higher operational costs involved with managing a travel hub asset, as well as the kind of demands of ESG. So making sure that your properties are sustainable and that they're meeting ESG framework, so you can have access to things like green loans and investments in that regard. But there's also internal problems. Tenants also expect convenience. Your tenant businesses expect a certain level of convenience. There's also quite a high expectation in terms of communication. Technology has made us communicate more frequently, so that has changed our expectations. There's also the problem of data. So data is very important to collect and act upon because that can tell you how well your property is performing, whether people are happy within your travel hubs, where you can improve. And without that information, you can't make the right decisions. So data insights are very important. And last of all, I mean, there's informing your tenants and stakeholders. This is a big challenge for a lot of managers because if tenants and stakeholders aren't informed, if they don't know what's going on within your travel hub about changes and policies and initiatives and so on, then they're going to be less engaged and they're going to be less satisfied. And over time, that will lead to churn and will lead to an impact on revenues. So yeah, maybe Stefan, you can add some insight into the challenges that people face at travel hubs.
Sure. Starting with the neighborhoodization, I think this is also a very interesting topic. We started with this around 1.5 years ago with more focus. So one of my employees is 30 hours a week focused on the theme on neighborhoodization, or community manager is a job title. And we have 3 pillars how we try to improve on neighborhoodization. On one hand, we have our event series. So we have different kind of events, cultural events, sportive events like workouts together with our gym, and as well as very casual after works, where companies from the airport also offer free drinks and kind of stuff like this. We have some sort of panel or focus group where important tenants joined us to meet once every 3 months roughly, so 4 times a year, and talk about needs and improvements within the airport city. So we have around 25 big companies at the moment, which send one person to these meetings, and then we collab and think about improvements and stuff like this. And of course, you can also say or use it for the uninformed tenants. It's the communication stuff where we use the app to push out all the information, to have all static information in one central place where people can access and get the information they need at one glance and don't have to ask around, I don't know, through 3 apartments at the airport until they reach the right person to ask the question to.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Thank you, Stefan. While we are at the topic of communication and digitization and making operations more efficient and more excellent, basically, let's jump into how communications look like in travel hubs, or that's how we usually observe how they look like. Actually, while we are at that, and before I give the word to Joe, there's a question to you, Stefan. So Caroline asks, is there a difference in the communication with the business community and with more general airport community at Vienna Airport?
Yeah, so I think this is mostly 2 different kind of groups we are talking to. Passengers is one kind of group which is not actively managed by us in the real estate department. So they are engaged with the central marketing department. They are responsible for all the passenger communication. And in the real estate department, we only focus or mostly focus on on the business community, on our tenants, on the employees of our tenants, and we try to connect them. We try to bring them together at our events so that they have or they can build a better network together. And this is a really nice thing that turned out that many of them or some of them have also started projects after we brought them together. So we see some improvements within the network, which turns out into business occasions, which is quite a nice addition to all the work-life improvements we are doing besides this.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Thank you. And Caroline, let us know if this answered your question. If not, just ask more on the comment section. One more question from Marie before we touch on this slide. What do you mean by self-service zone, as you mentioned before in the previous slide, Stefan?
I think this goes back to the postal office, so that you can the opening hours from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. But you can enter the office 24 hours a day, and you can pay for your packages and envelopes there, or send back packages with the automatic machines, which are there. Just have to scan the labels, and you can drop it there at any time, so that there's no need from our side to be staffed in the office 24/7.
Mm-hmm. That's actually really nice. Yeah, thank you, Marie, for the question. If you have more questions, just drop them in the comments. And now back to the internal processes and communication. So Joe, do you want to walk us through this slide, what we mean with the whole diagram in this slide?
Yeah, so the cost of not implementing some kind of consolidated digital layer into your travel hub's management it looks a little bit like what we see here. So we have the hub management and the asset managers on one side, we have the tenants on the other. And in order for them to communicate, they have to go through this kind of muddled mess of communication channels. That could be instant chat through WhatsApp and Facebook, it could be email, it could be through feedback forms and idea boxes, it could even be through phone calls and text messages and so on. All of these are great as communication channels, but when you're using 5, 6, 7, or 8 at once, it can become very confusing and it can become very frustrating because you don't have one place to view all of the data. So, if a tenant requests a maintenance repair and they do it via email, and then you communicate with a service provider via WhatsApp, then there's all these kind of disparate channels going around, and it can become very inefficient, can become very confusing. Mm-hmm. Moreover, asset management will have trouble not only communicating with the hub management but also collecting data. So understanding how tenants are feeling about the property, or understanding how quickly maintenance problems are resolved is all very important to understand the health of your travel hub. But if all of the data is in disparate platforms, it's hard to migrate that data to a back-end system, which can then be reported and acted upon. Mm-hmm. So this is really the cost of doing nothing, and nothing in this case is not kind of transitioning to a more consolidated digital layer. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Stefan, do you have anything to add to that?
I think, yes, the multiple communication channels could be a problem. For tenant requests, we have an own ticketing system, which is working good so far, I think. We are also using ticketing systems for other stuff at the airport, so this is quite a known process, which works out for us good. But of course, you always have phone calls and emails additionally when people try to get personally in touch. But I think in general, the discipline is quite good to use the ticketing system there.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Thank you for that, Stefan. So before we jump into a short discussion, I would like to bring the 2 questions that we got from the audience back into the scene. So one question is from Mathilde. What is the adoption rate of the app? Is it the only source of communication for or to the staff of your tenants? I think this is a question to you, Stefan.
Yeah, we are very happy with the adoption rate. We started the app in December 2022, so just 1 year and a little bit more right now online. And right now we have more than 2,500 registered people. So we already are more than 10% of all the people which are within the app. And you have to say that the app is mostly focused for classic office staff, which has regular office hours, which can 9 to 5 people, to be honest. Because if you're working shift days outside at the airport, loading planes and stuff like this for 12 hours and more, you won't be ready for some kind of after work or networking events afterward. So it's going quite good. We also have more than 100 companies already registered within the app. They all are administrating the profiles on their own, so we just have to give them access, and then they started to fill out all the information of the company on their own, which is also quite handy. And yeah, we're very happy. We aim to reach the 4,000 users this year, but even now it is quite a good success, because compared to that, before we used the app, we only communicated by newsletter, and we didn't have a newsletter for employees or staff of the tenants. We had just contact to the tenant itself, which was the CEO or maybe a real estate manager of the tenant. And I think we had around 500 to 600 contacts back then. So we multiplied this within 1.5 years by 4 times. And yeah, it's quite good, as well as the interaction rate in the app is also very good. So we reach around 40% of all people registered when we push out one piece of information. It's like a social network, and we have an opening rate of 40% or a reach of 40%.
Thank you for the answer, Stefan. One more question before I leave the floor to Joe to ask you some questions. This is a follow-up question from Henrik. The gym is used by passengers, employees, or airport visitors the most?
I think the biggest two groups are the employees and the visitors, because we also have a parking is also part of the real estate management, and we offer free parking for customers of the gym. So people from the surrounding smaller towns are also coming to the airport and are using the gym. And the gym brand itself has also quite a few different locations within Vienna. So employees could train here at the airport, but they also could use their membership to go to a gym close to their home, which is quite useful for them as well, I think. But we have day passes for passengers in theory, but I think they are not used so regularly than the other options.
All right. Let us know, Henrik, if this answered your question. Well, over to you, Joe.
Yeah, well, I'm going to ask you some more questions, Stefan, if you've still got some answers left in you. What's your communication strategy with commercial tenants and staff, and how well has it worked so far? Is there anything that you would improve about it?
Yeah, the strategy is to engage them within the community, to be honest. We all try to bring them all to the app because the admin of the companies are our direct point of contact. So we know when he is administrating the company profile within the app, he's also our right person to talk to if we have some new informations. We know we can invite them to our panel groups to work out new improvements or to gain feedback on done things, how things are working out for them. So yeah, the communication strategy is to get them in the app and to communicate with them in a closed circle, and to regularly take them to face-to-face contact at our events, and just stay active with them. It's hard. So I think if we will stop doing the proactive management or the proactive communication, it will go back very quickly. So it's a job you have to do on a very regular basis, but but at the moment it's quite good to communicate with them.
Yeah, I think tenant communication is always kind of like an ongoing struggle to keep them communicating and engaged. But thank you for the insight. How can travel hubs streamline tenant onboarding and communications, and what is the role that technology could potentially play in that process?
We have also it depends on the size of the tenants. Very big new tenants also get an own onboarding event. So, for example, we have a company which is producing engines for space satellites. It's coming to Vienna Airport, and they have rented out a huge amount of office space. So we did a half day or an afternoon, an onboarding event with them. Our vice president for real estate management showed them around the location, gave them all the information, as well as Valentina and I gave them an introduction to the AirportCity app. Even I think it was 6 months before they come to the airport, and they were so motivated to bring on the company profile that I think 40 or 50 employees of them were registered within 2 weeks after this onboarding program, many months ago, really starting to work at the airport, which was quite nice. So I think a planned onboarding process is very useful. And for smaller companies, we also have an event which is called Business Breakfast, which is at the moment 2 times a year. So once in April, once in November or October, it depends. where we have a short overview about things which are new to the airport city, and we also give away information back. So we send out to all our tenants. So do you want to represent your company at our business breakfast? We will do a small package with informational material. Just bring us your flyer, folder, goodie, whatever merchandise, and do it into the folder, into the package, and people will know about you. So this is the things we're doing at the moment.
Yeah, that's great to hear. I mean, I know that the onboarding process can really make or break the tenant experience at a very pivotal time. So it's important to get it right. On to my next question: how can we best make use of technology to prevent tenant churn and create healthier communities in travel hubs in general?
Yeah, I think it's not only technology. Of course, it's a lot of communication and personal work. You have to connect with them, you have to connect them within, and you have to make their employees happy, because when the employees don't, or when they can't find new employees, or employees of the tenant are leaving, of course they will get a problem at the airport. And so our main thing is to keep them happy, to keep them engaged, and therefore we have the pillars with the events, with the panel groups, and with the communication through the app.
Amazing. And what do you do at Vienna Airport to kind of assist collaboration between other communities? So say like offices and hotels and different shops and businesses within the airport space. What do you do to kind of support local economy and knowledge sharing in that regard?
Yeah, for example, the business breakfast is one kind of thing where we bring together people, and we have around 120 to 150 people coming there, mostly higher ranked in the hierarchy of the tenants, and they can exchange, and they exchange opinions, they exchange projects, and sometimes, yeah, it clicks and they will start a new cooperation. Maybe some find out about problems others have, they can help to solve. And yeah, it's not always possible to plan this kind of stuff, but we see that it's coming from its own on a very regular basis, that they're working closely
together. Yeah. And I mean, lastly, as someone who has extensive experience working within these kind of communities and community management and so on, what do you have any kind of like lessons learned from your experience at Vienna Airport that you would kind of like want to tell someone who was considering making a transition to the kind of strategy that you have at Vienna?
Sure. At first, expect a slow start. Also, our events were very small populated at the beginning, because the airport was not typically an after-work location, or a location where people will stay after they finish their regular job. So the first rooftop party was around 100 people which visited, although it was quite a very, very nice location. And the first sushi workshop were around 30 people, but it increased over time and it got better and better. And on the last after work in February, I think we had more than 350 registrations. We had to stop them because the location was full in our conference center. And now we're thinking about doing the next edition outdoors so that even more people could join. So yeah, on the one side, it's hard work. Don't expect that it's starting quickly from the first step on. On the other hand, you need the personal communication with important stakeholders. So we identified at around 20 to 30 really big companies where we know when they are on board on our community strategy, our community panel, their employees could also make a difference in using the app and stuff like this. So all of them we contacted personally. We presented our idea of doing community management here at the airport. And to be honest, all of them like the idea. Of course, it's intensive. We have one person who is doing only this kind of stuff, but the feedback is really great, and the work is, gains good feedback from all of the tenants, which we are doing at the moment. So I think it pays off. And the last thing is create content and offers which are relevant to the people, to the employees itself. So I think the big advantage of this app is that you don't have some kind of algorithm which is filtering out stuff which could be relevant to this, and this stuff is only shown to that. Everyone gets every information, and that's the reason why you have to think about how to communicate and how to style the information that everyone is interested in, and you don't lose the people on the way because you're communicating too much or too much irrelevant things. I think those are 3 takeaways I can share.
Yeah, thank you, Stefan. I think it's been really great to learn about Vienna Airport in the build up to this webinar. I think it's a really amazing community, and it really shows the kind of places that travel hubs can be with the help of digitization, but also with like a solid strategy and great people behind it. Thank you for sharing that wisdom, Stefan. It was really good.
Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Stefan, for that. There are still quite many questions coming from the audience, which is fantastic to see. So thank you, audience, for being so active in the chat. I will make sure that the questions are answered before we go to the key takeaways. I think that we can start with the question of Caroline. I think you still answered that in your communication anyway. She asked, what are your specific actions to improve the number of users? Stefan, you said, be active in the community, empower the community manager, post content, be consistent, but also, patient.
Yeah. I think specific actions, 2 more. One is raffles, so you can do stuff like giveaways and say everyone who is within the app can win this or that. And for example, for the very popular events like the afterwork, we also limited the access to people which are registered app user. So you have to have the app that you can join the event, which was also quite a game changer because a lot of people heard of the event and saw the after movie of the first edition and wanted to come to the second one and started to be an app user.
All right. Let us know, Caroline, if it answered your question. So Matilde asks, do you also target your cargo tenants as part of the community or mostly business?
No, of course. Cargo is part of the AirportCity as well as normal office tenants. So we also have an own communication channel for cargo topics. So within the app, all the cargo companies can follow this channel and get the cargo news filtered there, which are not so relevant for other companies. But to be honest, the cargo community is managed by the cargo manager. So we as a community team are not specifically creating content for them, but we're helping the cargo managers to use the app and to get in touch with the cargo community.
All right. Before I move to the next questions, for the people who still stayed until this time, I just want to sum up the key learnings so that they can take these home. And then we will jump into the last few questions from the audience. So overall in this webinar, we learned that with intense neighborhoodization and increase in the number, variety of tenants in travel hubs, communication with tenants is a must. And of course, streamlining is a bigger must. Creating engaged communities in travel hubs will obviously positively influence the business efficiency, profitability, and also it will stabilize tenant retention. Keeping great relationships between tenants and the hub management, it will also positively influence the visitor experience. If you have other key takeaways from this webinar, something that really stick to your mind, let us know in the comments. Before we say goodbye, I'll be asking Stefan the last few questions from the audience. Melanie asks, how did Vienna AirportCity handle the launch of the app? What advice would you give to the other airports that would start using the Channels app?
Yeah, I think it was quite a very productive quarter because we started in September with the launch preparations. So we sent channels our white label logos and colors and stuff like this. They did their part of the story. And on the other hand, we tried to bring in so the app was already there, and we implemented the first users or the first big companies, so that it doesn't look empty when the people will come to join the app. We put on a service page where all services of the airport were shown in a very alphabetical and structured way. So we tried to prepare content, quite a few, so that it looks useful to people which are coming to the app. Because I think when they're coming to an empty app, they maybe won't come again, or it could happen that some won't come again so quickly. That was the reason why we prepared content. And this content preparation was around 2 months from our side, until all the services were implemented. We also added some vouchers and offers, which brings discounts to the employees of the tenants. And we implemented the meal plan of the Airport City restaurants as well, so that we could offer the most benefit as possible at the launch of the app. And then we did 2 or 3 days of flyering in vital parts of the Airport City where people get out of the train, come to the office buildings. So we had some small flyers with some chocolates, just as a nice giveaway. And of course, we sent out a newsletter to our newsletter list to engage the tenants itself, to promote it to the employees. And we also motivated the tenants which were already in the app to invite their employees to join as well. So these were the main parts. And we had, I think, as I mentioned before, we had a raffle for all app users within the first 3 months. We collected prizes from our tenants. And I think in total, that was a number of more than 1,000 euros in total value of the prizes we gave away within all the users in the first 3 months of the app launch.
Thank you for the answer, Stefan. So there's a question around the pricing of the channels platform and what's the yearly OPEX. We would really like to answer this question, in a separate email. We would need to know a couple of parameters before we are able to give a ballpark, the composition of the tenants, modules they want to use, or potential integrations. So let's connect after this webinar. Before we say goodbye, I want to let the audience know that in the details section on the top right bar on your screen, you are able to download a one-pager that also tells a bit more about Vienna Airport City's success story with channels. So this is your homework to take after the webinar, to have a little something to read and the summary of the webinar in general. Any last remarks, Stefan, that you want to say to our audience?
No, I think thank you very much for staying in this webinar for so long. I think we're mostly 15 minutes over the time. If you have any questions regarding the Vienna Airport City community or things we did, don't wait to contact me. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can write me a mail, just as you like. I would really like to connect with you and exchange ideas how to improve as an airport city. So we are very looking forward for new connections and learn also from other airports, because I think we are doing a lot of things. We get good feedback, but still we are not perfect. So still ways to improve, and happy to exchange with other airports about their community measurements.
Thank you, Stefan, for sharing the inspiring story of Vienna Airport City. Looks like we have a connection problem on the side of Joe, so he's right next to me. So we would also like to say goodbye to our audience. Join in Joe to say
unfortunately my laptop has been throwing a bit of a wobbly. But it's like the old saying goes, what can go wrong will go wrong, and I think people who work in travel hubs know that all too well. It just goes to show that having the right solutions in place is really important. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Good to meet you.